Hey everybody, welcome back to the Plays and Fades YouTube channel. I'm your host, Gordo Gambles. Welcome back to the full card breakdown. This time for UFC 316, we have ourselves a phenomenal pay-per-view in New Jersey, headlined by the rematch between Dvalishvili and Sean O'Malley. As always, before I get into this video, make sure to check out CoolBet using code Gordo, as well as Establish the Run, where I do my premium DraftKings content. Here, free breakdowns, as always. Let's talk some fights. We're gonna do it a little bit differently here. I don't want to waste any more time. Make sure to hit the like button down below, subscribe to the channel, show some love, and let's do this. Whoa. How did I get here? No, we are still keeping the exact same format. We're just going to throw up a couple more visuals for you guys in the background here. Some odds, some stats, making sure it's more visually appealing than, this weird little Canadian talking to. Let's not waste any more time. Let's talk some fights. We get the fight night started with the UFC newcomer, the 8-0 Mark the Shark Choinski versus the 10-1 Markel Mederos. Pretty fun fight. Markel Mederos was to fight on the card last weekend against Balaji Oki. Had to pull out because he was ill, and now he's fighting here. A little bit suspect, but still a guy who I do think has some decent striking. He is able to get a couple wins at the UFC, questionable to certain degrees as well, but still a fighter who does have a decent striking skill set. He has been taken down, and that's really the big issue here against Mark the Shark, who truly is a grappling first type of fighter. He does have a D3 background behind him there as well, someone who does want to go out there and wrestle and kind of has oriented his style towards that. He is kind of a bit lost on the feet, but someone who is able to go out there. He is able to get takedowns, can control position also from top position, and someone who is a grappler first. Considering the way that also Hubbard and Lenny Quinones were able to go out there and land takedowns, I do think Mark Choinski is a very, very solid option this week. And I do think looking at the way we are able to get odds behind me here as well, he is still a favorite who I do think we can also go out there. Underdog, we can look to get some value in as well. He is sitting at plus 168, so maybe the value's kind of gone there, but on DraftKings, he is someone who I'm kind of looking to target. Considering the way this slate is shaping out on DraftKings, you have a ton of big favorites. On this entire card, there's only 2 fights that are below minus 200 or better, so this top range is pretty loaded with a lot of good options, and down low, conversely, we have a lot of underdogs who are not expected to win at all. They're not expected to do very well, and in doing so, we have ourselves a guy Mark Choinski who's 7.3K, still not the cheapest fighter by any means, but still a fighter who allows you to go up and get some of those better options. He is someone who, like I mentioned, does have that grappling path to victory, and considering I think he wins more often than the line entails, he may be a better play than some of these guys down low. I do think that the level of competition is something that is going to be a Mederos side, and on the feet I do favor Mederos, so not completely sold on Mark Choinski from a betting perspective or even from a pick perspective. I think gun to my head I would still pick Mederos, but DraftKings wise the clear equity is on Choinski. He does have the grappling side of things, and I do think Mederos is someone who you can't really get to at his price tag. So gun to my head, I'd pick Mederos to win a striking-based decision, but I do think the grappling upside lies in the Choinski side of things, and I will be playing way more of him on DraftKings this week. Next up, we have the 8-1 Ashmouz versus the 8-1 Salkilld. Salkilld busted the scene last time with a 19-second knockout win last time, and he was able to go out there and light something up for him in the celebration. So a guy with a little bit of aura behind him as well, an Australian-based fighter with some decent striking on the feet, and also able to go out there and showcase a 9 takedown victory on Dana White Contender Series. Pretty well rounded. He will have a clear size and reach advantage in this spot here, and I do think he is the more technical striker, and he also does have that wrestling in his back pocket. Ashmouz is someone who is more power driven. Did go out there and land 9 takedowns against Trevor Peek, but Trevor Peek is definitely a different technicality based matchup than someone like Salkilld. But I do think that Ashmouz can go out there and look to win the moments. However, what I do think it comes down to is the size, technicality, and just the pure wrestling ability does lay on the Salkilld side of things. So although Ashmouz may be able to land that big power shot on the feet, the guy with better takedown success, better grappling upside, even with the better technicality and ability to keep range on the feet is going to be Salkilld, and he's my pick to win. However, minus 50, he is a huge favorite this week. Not a guy I really want to go out there and parlay considering how dangerous Ashmouz is, but I do think there is some potential wrestling equity you can look to target on DraftKings. Again, this top range is stacked, so it is kind of hard to get to someone like Salkilld, but he showed not only the ability to have knockout power, but land 9 takedowns on 22 attempts, so he does have that kind of ceiling, even in a decision win, and he does have the power to go out there and get a finish. I do think he's a decent pay-up option at 9.4K. On the flip side of things, Ashmouz is someone who I don't see winning too often, and if it does, I don't think it rivals the same ceiling as a Saragih or someone we're going to talk about later. So, Salkilld here a pass. I do think he has more DraftKings equity than betting line value, but still a guy I think wins this weekend. Then we have the 14-4 Saragih versus the 8-0 Ju Sang Yu, and I'll be honest, guys, I kind of thought this was jiu-jitsu when the fight was first announced, but no, we actually have Zombie Jr., the Korean Zombies kind of fight prospect, a guy who was seen kind of training with Max Holloway and Zombie there recently, a guy who is an 8-0 undefeated fighter from that promotion, and a guy who is a very, very solid athlete. He is very well built, a lot of athleticism behind his game as well, and that kind of translates inside the cage. On the mat, he's able to control positions down there. He does have some solid ground and pound and solid submission ability there as well. On the feet, although he is kind of a lack of defense type of fighter, he is still someone who wants to go out there, in and out movement, solid volume, and kind of wants to land that big shot, and has a technicality to do that. Again, Saragih, he might have to get his hands up a little bit more because Jeka's path is just a one-shot guy. He does not have volume, not any good minute-winning ability, horrible cardio, and his ground game is horrible. I mean, this man gave Weston Wilson a win inside the UFC. Shout out Weston Wilson. He did help me cash that ticket. But still, a guy in Saragih who definitely has his flaws about him. So this is Yu's, not you, but Jusang Yu's fight to lose here. I do think he has the ability to go out there, land takedowns, establish top control, look to threaten and challenge that really poor ground game that Saragih has, and even on the feet probably has more minute-winning ability. Now, should he have to be cautious of Saragih's power? 100%, but I do think it is a very, very fun fight. I think Yu wins, but minus 625, I don't really know how it's hard to get there. I kind of wanted to play the under because of the way that Saragih can gas out, but that line is also kind of getting out of hand. I do think that Saragih's one win condition is an early finish, an early knockout. Aside from that, I do think Yu is going to take over down the stretch. So looking to play violence, and if I can get a solid number on maybe the submission prop for someone like Yu, I might be able to go get that there. But instead, more on DraftKings. Yu is right above Salkilld, and here's the issue with that is I do think he wins. I do think he wins by finish, but he's not as aggressive. I don't think Saragih can get up from takedown, so he doesn't have that same 9, 10, 11 takedown upside that Salkilld has. And he's more of a kind of a direct pivot off of someone like Salkilld. Him and Murzakanov sandwiched in between Van Salkilld and Harrison can be tough to really get to, but they're my pivot plays in this top range. Not forcing him to any lineups, but if you are playing GBP tournaments, he does have solid upside. Whereas Saragih has kind of turned into my favorite punt play on the entire slate. Again, this guy's not good. I don't think he wins, but he does not win without a first-round knockout, and a 6.7K, that could break the slate. So a fight I do want some exposure to, Saragih is a punt down low, Yu is a pivot play up top, and I do think it's a fight that does end us at a distance. Should be a fun one, but I am picking Yu. Then we have the 7-1 Wang Kong versus the 17-10 Ariane De Silva, Ariane Lipsky, whatever you want to call her. Another interesting matchup here, but a very big favorite. I'm not even going to pull up odds for this fight because we all know that Kong Wang is a very large favorite here. She is someone with a ton of boxing technicality. She was upset and the hype was kind of derailed, but against Gabriela Fernandez, but last time was able to show a dominant performance against Bruna Brazil. We all know she has a ton of volume, a ton of technicality, is a very, very good kickboxer on the feet as well, but was able to manage range, even manage in some takedowns as well, and that could be relevant here against someone like Lipsky, who can be taken down, can be destroyed, lost his strikes to Antonia Shevchenko, Montana De La Rosa, knocked out early by Priscilla Cachoeira, a fighter who's killer to be killed and kind of that queen of violence type of fighter, and someone who we have seen struggle on the mat. I do think that although Ariane De Silva could potentially land volume, potentially try to keep this one close in the feet, is still someone who is going to be at a disadvantage in the technicality and the power and even the durability. And if this fight does hit the mat, I think the physicality of Kong Wang may sway her towards having more wrestling success, even more grappling success towards, but another potential finish win here. So I'm on Kong Wang. No hot take there. I do think she wins. She is a large favorite. And on DraftKings, there's another really tough one to get to. 9.1K between Pyfer and Dvalishvili. Not going to have much action. She is more of that pivot play. I do think a finish is on the table, but I do think it's very rare that she outscores the people in this range because it is going to be a slower WMMA fight that is probably going to go the distance. It's hard for me to get her to this one here. So another pivot play, but I am picking Kong Wang to win. And then we have what I'm going to call my favorite prelim on the entire card here. The 15-4 Chaos Williams versus the 11-2 Andreas Gustafsson. This one's going to be fun. Gustafsson was supposed to fight last week, and then Trevin Giles unfortunately was not able to compete. So Gustafsson here, the guy who said he wants to go out there and fight specially, if you know what I mean, is a guy who is very aggressive. Not a type of guy you want to see in an alleyway because he is pretty terrifying. He wants to go forward, look to break you with pressure, a ton of volume and clinch control, and look to really damage you and look to break you along the cage. Aside from that, though, he is there to be hit, and he is not the most technical fighter, and someone like Chaos William, who is technical, who is powerful, might be able to take advantage of that defensive deficiency that Gustafsson may have. So I do think the power lays on the Chaos Williams side of things, though. However, it was not recently that we just saw him go out there and almost lose to Rolando Bedoya. Was allowed 149 strikes landed against him and was walked down and was controlled. So if Andreas Gustafsson can get him to the cage, can he impose his physicality? Can he land volume? I definitely think he can look to break Chaos Williams, but I do understand why Chaos Williams is favored. He is a big dude. He does hit hard, and Gustafsson doesn't really protect himself at all times. So I do think that Chaos Williams can land that knockout. But aside from that, Gustafsson will go forward, and if he has the physicality to keep Chaos Williams along the cage, he's going to test that heart, he's going to test that resiliency, and look to land a ton of damage because of that. So I think it's a very, very close fight. I think I'm actually going to slightly pick Gustafsson, but I completely understand why Williams is the favorite. He is going to have more moment-winning ability, and he's going to be the better distance striker. I just think Gustafsson has a purpose. He wants to take you to the cage. He wants to look to break you there. I do think he lands a lot of strikes in the process, looking to win optics. Because of that, on DraftKings is a phenomenal fight to target, especially Gustafsson. At 7.5K, I think he's probably my favorite underdog on the card because like I said, I'm picking him to win in what is a close fight, and there aren't many underdogs who you're picking to win this week. It is a very chalk-heavy card, so Gustafsson not only has the ability to win, but his path to victory is volume, and cage control volume. And I do think that's going to allow for him to break his opponent, score well in the process, and is a guy who I'm definitely looking to target here. Give me Gustafsson. Flip side of things, Williams' path to victory is probably an early finish. He could get that. Another good tournament play at 8.7K. I love this fight. I'm slightly leaning Gustafsson, but truly, Chaos Williams is live for a knockout here. And then we have one of the most polarizing fights on the card. We have ourselves the 17-5 Sergey Spivac versus the 13-1 salsa boy Waldo Cortes-Acosta. Typical striker versus grappler matchup. Sergey Spivac has fought the best of the best. He's either going out there mauling you in the first round, or he's getting destroyed. He's being knocked out in the feet. Gain, Aspinall, people are knocking him out early and really damaging him, whereas if he's able to get these guys to the mat, he's able to ragdoll them, advance position, and he truly is dangerous. Salsa Boy's a bit different. He is a primary striker, and he wants to go out there, land those big shots, solid leg kicks, solid volume, solid durability, but he's yet to really face a grappler. He was taken out a few times by Rogerio de Lima, taken out once by Chase Sherman, even on the regional scene by Thomas Peterson as well, so I do think that the ground game is a deficiency for Cortes-Acosta, but aside from that, he will be the better striker. He will land more volume, and that's kind of why this fight is so fun. You know me, when there's a striker versus grappler, I lean towards my grapplers, so I'm going to pick Sergey Spivac. I think he's going to go out there, land takedowns, look to advance position, and be able to ragdoll someone like Waldo Cortes-Acosta, who has never really been taken down or threatened on the mat too much. I think this might be even a step down for competition in Sergey Spivac, and for that reason I am taking him. However, I do think this fight is going to be violence-filled. I do think that the fight ends at the distance might be a good look. I do think that there is some upsides for early finishes for Spivac either. I'm tempted his money line, but maybe even instead of his money line, I might just get invested on his DraftKings salary. I mean, he's 8.3K here. He is, honestly, this is the closest line fight, so the closest line on DraftKings as well, but get invested on him at 8.3K on DraftKings. I think he allows for ground success. He scored very, very well in the past. And those big scores can be replicated against a guy who can be taken down. So I might just load up on Sergey Spivac. However, not just playing him, Cortes-Acosta's path to victory is probably an early knockout as well. So give me this fight from both sides. I am picking Sergey Spivac, but I do think it should be a pretty fun heavyweights fight. I'm just picking the grappler in it. And then it will probably be my shortest breakdown, the 14-0 Azamat Murzakanov versus the 17-7 Bretson Ribeiro. I'm not the biggest Ribeiro fan, if I'm completely honest. This is the guy who Ming Yang Zhang was my Valentine against. It's just when he's not landing that one big knockout shot, or when he's not going out there and landing that fluke Kimura, he's struggling. And I do think his chin is a liability. He's slower to the punch. He can be taken down. And this is probably a step down in competition for Azamat Murzakanov, who's going out there knocking out people like Alonzo Menafield early. Devin Clark, even getting that late finishing tape on Nakshukwi. He's a ton of power. He's going to be the more technical fighter, and this is a step down of competition, in my opinion. I even think that Murzakanov could get takedowns if he wanted to, but I do think this is Murzakanov's fight to lose. Has the knockout power, has a technicality, and is able to land on someone like Ribeiro, who is there to be hit. I think Murzakanov knocks him out. However, the line is wide, and truly, this is a guy who is not always the most eager to get that finish. He's patient, and I kind of like that from a pick perspective, but this fight as a whole is just one that I think the line is wide. However, I think Murzakanov wins. I think he gets that knockout. I'll look to play some knockout props, but this fight, even on DraftKings, is a tough one to get to because he's not going to chase the finish early, has never broken 100 points, and on a slate filled with really good scores, it's hard to get to him. So a fight that I'm not really going to have too much of an investment in. The pick is Murzakanov. He's nothing but a pivot play up top, but I do think he gets an early finish. And then this is another really good one here. We have ourselves the 13-2 Joshua Van versus the 14-6-2 Bruno Silva. Super fun fight. I mean, Joshua Van has taken the world by storm. Still very, very young, but has fought really, really entertainingly, if that's even a thing. And I mean, just look at these stats. He's going out there and he is averaging just an incredible amount of strikes landed per minute. 8.1 strikes landed per minute, is getting a ton of volume, attacking the body, attacking the head, even leg kicks out there as well, and is really damaging his opponent. He builds as the fight goes, and although his ground game is still in question, a very, very dominant fighter, especially when he's on the front foot. Bruno Silva has been at top as well. A ton of power, a decent ground game, but he wants to strike. And last time he was kind of out-volumed, out-hit by someone like Manel Kopp, a kind of a style that Joshua Van is going to implement as well. So those are the best opponent Joshua Van has fought. Bruno Silva has a style that's kind of going to fall into Joshua Van's hands. I mean, Joshua Van wants to go out there and strike 15 minutes and builds as the fight goes on. whereas Bruno Silva kind of has power, but also wants to strike and kind of gets tired as the fight goes on. So a fight that really Joshua Van should win. He's going to build as the fight goes, and I do think he's able to beat someone like Bruno Silva here, although I do think the line may be wide. Minus 700, again, a big step up in competition, but if you'd rather play, you got the fight inside the distance, minus 120. I do think this is pretty damaging. I do think the path to victory for Bruno Silva is probably a knockout. We could look at the Van round 3 at plus 900, their best available, or even the Van by sub at plus 1,000 if you want a Hail Mary, just because I do think that Bruno Silva is durable enough. We saw it last time against Cape, and Van's sometimes hunting that guillotine at the end of the round. So a volume-based affair, one that Van should be able to go out there and win, and I am picking him. DraftKings-wise, it's tough because he's in that 9.3K range, and he doesn't have takedown equity. He doesn't always get an early finish, so he needs to go out there and land a ton of shots. Is he going to? Yes, but he needs knockdowns or a finish to make the optimal lineup, in my opinion. Because even to go out there and land 180 shots, he's not always scoring what you need to, especially on a card like this. If you think he's able to go out there, get a second or third round finish, and potentially a couple knockdowns, well, yes, that'll score well. But Manel Kampf last time scored 99.5 points. That's not going to be enough. And he put on a stellar performance against Bruno Silva. So I'm picking Van. He's a solid play, especially in cash. But in tournaments, I do think he might be phased out of the optimal lineup, and I'm not getting to option there. This is a phenomenal fight. However, I am picking Joshua Van. And then on to the main card, we have ourselves the 27-13 Kevin Holland against the 23-10 Vicente Luque. And at first, if this fight was even 2 years ago, you look at the name value, Vicente Luque, a guy who is just deadly, Dark Knight of this division, a guy who is just the silent assassin, right? A guy who's a very good striker, ton of brawls, ton of very good object submission game as well. Takes on Kevin Holland, especially a guy who's been dominating on the mat. You'd think that Vicente Luque should maybe even be favored here. But at this point of their careers, the more and the more the week goes on, I like Kevin Holland. And I think this is a matchup that is set up for him to succeed. You look at a way that Vicente Luque wins fights, it's that Darce choke, or he's looking to beat you off of damage and volume. Well, Holland's got fantastic durability, he's got incredible volume to match, and he's going to have the reach advantage in this fight that I think he's able to dictate where this fight takes place, as well as a really good grappling game to stay safe from that Darce choke. The big issue here is Luque. And he mentioned after that Jeff Neal fight that, he had the brain bleed and he does not like to be hit. And if you're not being able to be hit, we didn't really get it showcased against RDA or against Themba, but against Buckley, got hit a couple times, kind of quit. It was a tough to watch performance in there in that second round. So I think Kevin Holland's able to hit hard. He's able to fend off the potential even scrambles from someone like Luque and look to make sure Luque doesn't want to be in anymore. Make him quit. And I do think that the damage accrued here was going to potentially lead to a finish for someone like Kevin Holland. I am picking him to win. I'm more confident than I probably should be. I'm just not sure Luque is able to compete anymore at this level and take a ton of damage. Holland KO is only plus 140. It's tough to get to. I will have to see where the line shapes out. But even on DraftKings this week, it is a solid play. Historically, he hasn't always been the best DraftKings scorer, but he's sandwiched between Mederos and Williams, two guys who I told you I like their underdogs a lot more. If I'm able to afford him at 8.8K, he fits into my builds pretty well. So give me Kevin Holland. Not very high with Vicente Luque this week. I think Kevin Holland gets it done. I'm a lot more confident than I thought it'd originally be. Then we have the 15-2 Mario Bautista versus the 20-1 UFC debutant Patchy Mix. And I'm super happy to have Patchy Mix here inside the UFC because this guy may be the real deal. Phenomenal scrambles. I think his striking is still there to be worked on, but a guy who's deadly on the mat, has fought a good level of competition, who has succeeded pretty well so far. This guy is fun to watch, and I do think there's going to be some fun scrambles in this one here. However, I do think this is a spot here where people are kind of hating too much of Mario Bautista. I bet on Jose Aldo. I'm also not a fan of Mario Bautista right now as well, but he is still a very good fighter who's probably going to have the striking advantage here, who is also able to stay safe in these scramble exchanges. I do think the line is wide, but I'm still going to pick Patchy Mix here to take advantage of the grappling deficiencies. It was 4 takedowns in round 1 for Damon Blackshear, and I do think Patchy Mix has the ability to backpack people, to hold them there, and to really pass positions that could really threaten Mario Bautista. I do think he's a level above on the mat, and that could allow him to go out there and win rounds and even threaten submissions. However, Mario Bautista is no slouch, and I think that if the longer this fight's on the feet, Mario Bautista is able to have some success up there that could potentially win him this matchup. I just don't think he excels enough on the feet or is able to fend off takedowns well enough to separate himself to make him the favorite. So I'm picking Patchy Mix. I do think that ground game is the victor this week. Betting-wise, not too much I like. Not confident enough to lay a big hammer on this one, but this is the toughest fight for me on DraftKings. Not really because of Patchy Mix. There's a potential for a sub, so I may sprinkle him in, but it's Mario Bautista. I don't think he wins that often, but I think he's got a way better chance to win than everybody else below him. And if he goes out there and wins a striking-based decision and scores 70 points and no other underdog wins, then he is someone who's kind of going to be led towards the optimal lineup that it's so hard for me to rationalize. So I don't want to play Bautista. I don't think he wins, and even in a win, I don't think he scores that well. But if no other underdog wins, and on a very chalk-heavy card, it's tough to get to him, he's going to be someone that you need to have ownership to. So I don't want to get some Bautista, but I will end up on a little bit of him just because of how weak this bottom range is. I still prefer a Gustafsson and a Choinski straight up against him. However, pick his Patchy Mix. welcome to the UFC. I hope he's able to put on a good account for himself. And then you have the 20-9 Kelvin Gastelum versus the 13-3 Joe Pyfer, another rescheduled bout. I've talked about this one already, so we'll kind of keep this one short. In Mexico City, I think this could be one that, Joe Pyfer could tire out. Kelvin Gastelum's a vet. Kelvin Gastelum could have some success. However, when it comes down to a fight now in New Jersey, that I do think that Joe Pyfer is going to have better skills towards, it is his fight to lose. He's not only going to have the physicality aspect, the power, the moment winning on the feet, but he's also going to have the opportunity to land takedowns and threaten submissions. He has really grown into the fighter he is, and I do think he is someone who could rise to the top here in this matchup. The power is on his side for moment-winning ability. Although Gastelum is durable, he is able to give up moments there as well. But the takedowns, the slams, the transitions towards jump triangles, he is a very deadly grappler there as well. And I do think that he has all these tools that can help him win, whether it be the moment with strikes or even the moments with the takedowns, threatening submissions. I do think there's a multitude of ways Joe Pyfer can win, and it is his fight to lose. Because of that, I don't really know if I want to attack any betting markets, even from props or anything else. This is a fight I kind of want to pass on from a betting perspective. DraftKings-wise, though, I'm also kind of scared for this one because he is someone who, at this price range, there's so many good people around him. We talked about Van, Salkilld, the pivot of Yu and Kong. We talked about even Merab here shortly. Actually, we haven't talked about it yet, but we will. Top range, and I'm really tough for me to get to him, especially because I could very much see him landing the big shots, winning a decision, scoring 80, and not beating everybody around him, but also him going out there, landing the big shots, threatening takedowns, scoring 110, in which he would be viable. So a tournament play, secondary option, I prefer Salkilld, I prefer Van, prefer Dvalishvili. He is more of a secondary play for me. And then our co-main event, we have ourselves the 13-5 Joanna Pena, 18-1 Kayla Harrison. What a fight. We have ourselves the challenger, Kayla Harrison, as a minus 800 favorite here. This girl is an absolute tank. The first time I ever got introduced to her, Practical Jokers, she threw around Mur a lot, and I was like, wow, this girl's an absolute beast. She translated that inside the cage. Although in PFLs against some soccer moms, she is able to come over here to the UFC, implement that judo background, able to go out there, threaten top position as well. She is a very violent person and very physically imposing. She wants to send those takedowns in the clinch, get on top, and there she's able to transition to some ground and pound, but also threaten submissions. And against someone like Joanna Pena, who, is an absolute junkyard dog, there's no really putting that past her. Kayla Harrison's going to get takedowns, and it's going to be up to her what she's able to do against her. Joanna Pena, although she's a champion, 23% takedown defense. Sounds made up. It's right there, and she is someone who I do think is able to be taken down, is able to be mauled down there. I mean, you have Nunes who landed 6 takedowns against her. She'll be taken about lesser people. She's even submitted by Jermaine Durandamy. I do think that it's a tough matchup for her. Now, can Kayla Harrison gas out? Juliana Pena have more of a dog in her and really take over in the later rounds? Maybe. But aside from that, I do think Kayla Harrison's going to have her way with her on the mat. Super physically imposing, especially if she can make the weight, which is the important thing here. And I do think it's Kayla Harrison's time to shine. I think she gets takedowns early. I think she gets them often. I think she threatens submissions, ground and pound. And I do think she probably gets an early finish. Because of that, betting line kind of out of hand. Maybe bet some finish props, but it's DraftKings where you're really going to have to make your decisions. 9.7K, very, very expensive, but a super high ceiling. Takedowns are there for days. We saw how much Amanda Nunes scored against her there as well. And I do think an early finish is on the table. If you can get up to her, she's my favorite play on the slate. However, it is very expensive to get to her. And you can also make arguments for high ceilings for Salkilld, Van, for early finishes from Murzakanov and you. So it is a very good top range. If you can afford Kayla Harrison, I want to get to her. If you're playing Choinski and Gustafsson like I like, you can get Kayla Harrison. I do like the lineups with her, but on lineups you can't. I mean, she's not a must play. There are really good options this week, and there are worlds she's just phased out due to salary. But I do like Kayla Harrison. I do think she wins. I do think she mauls her here and becomes a champion. Hopefully, maybe we get Harrison Nunes in our future here. And then we have ourselves the rematch, the main event, the 19-4 Merab Dvalishvili, 18-2 Sean O'Malley, a super fun fight. Last time these guys were even, Merab won the belt, and now here we are on the rematch. You can make all the comments you want about Sean O'Malley being injured at that time, and, he's taking a year off from social media, smoking weed, and jacking off, so maybe he's able to fend off some takedowns now. But truly, this was a time last time where Merab looked great, landed 6 takedowns, able to have some control time, landed 200 strikes, and was able to go out there and implement damage. But he was able to do all that with taking a round off, with Sean O'Malley not really countering too much against him, and even Sean O'Malley hurting him to the body late. And it kind of sums up this whole fight dynamic. This is a fight that Merab should win. He has a clear ability to get takedowns, and he was able to land damage and win rounds with them as well, enough to take off that 5th round. But we were able to see how easily Sean O'Malley can change the course of things. So, truth be told, I'm picking Merab to win. He has the ability to land takedowns. He scored 137 points on DraftKings. He is a phenomenal offensive minute winner, and I do think he's able to go out there and win this fight. But the path to victory for Sean O'Malley is landing the knockout blow, and I definitely think he can go out there and do that. He's now plus 230, and I see a lot of love for him. I don't really know if I'll get there on the money line. I mean, I guess technically last time he only lost by 1 round, but this is a fight that he shouldn't really be winning minutes in. If he wants to win, it's attacking that body or landing that big shot that Marlon Moraes almost did against him as well there as well. Tanner Cejudo wobbled him as well. So I kind of prefer that KO prop at plus 350, plus 450 if I'm playing anything, because I do think that is path to victory. However, because of that, I don't really know how much I'm going to get to it. Like I said, I'm picking Murad, but more so I want to sit back and enjoy as a fan, as a grappler versus striker kind of matchup. But this is the fight to target on DraftKings. There's no surprise about it. Murad's going to be super popular, and you kind of have to. 9K, one of the best DraftKings scores of all time, is going to go out there, is going to land takedowns. Scored 137 last time and kind of coasted the third round. So I do think he is a phenomenal play. Really one of my highest owned guys. Conversely, Sean O'Malley, 7.2K. Like I said, path to victory is a knockout. Even if it comes late, he's 7.2K. He could score 80 points, be optimal. He could score 60 and be optimal on a slate that has so many large favorites. This is a fight that you want both sides. 5 rounds to work. I do think it's going to be a super fun matchup. I'm picking Murad. However, I do think I might get some inclination towards a KO bet on O'Malley. Should be a phenomenal fight. I am looking forward to it. However, that's going to do it for me here on the Plays and Fades YouTube channel. Quickly running through my quick picks. We're taking Murad Dvalishvili, Kayla Harrison, Joe Pyfer, Patchy Mix, Kevin Holland, Joshua Van, Azamat Murzakanov, Sergey Spivac, Andreas Gustafsson, Kong Wang, Yusang Yu, Quinlan Salkilld, and gun to my head, Markel Mederos. DraftKings-wise, this top range is loaded. If you can get up to Harrison, I'd like to play her. And then I do think that Salkilld and Van is going to get a ton of that attention. That's why I think the pivot plays is probably Yusang Yu and Kong Wang if you're looking to be different. However, if you get down a bit lower, Murad Dvalishvili is going to be my highest owned fight in the entire slate. Then in the mid-range, I love Kevin Holland if you get to him. Chaos Williams also has first round equity. And then Sergey Spivac, and also a very high-owned fighter in my eyes because I do think he has grappling success. Underdog-wise, Gustafsson and Choinski are going to be my favorite fighters. Both have a ton of volume and high ceilings and wins, and I do think win more than their opponents. Below that, the punt plays, Sean O'Malley, 5 rounds to get a knockout. Saragih, an opponent who I do think his path to victory is probably a knockout. And Juliana Pena, if she wins, is going to come by in the 5th round, and you're going to get a lot of salary savings. I don't think it happens, but it could, and it could open up some things. So that's how I'm playing that. So if you're going the way I said, and you're saying, okay, highest owned fighter, probably Murad. I also said I like the mid-range value of someone like a Gustafsson there, and then Sergey Spivac is also someone who I said I liked a lot as well. Boom. You have your salary. You have 8.4K remaining. You then have to get some other underdogs, especially if you want to target that top range, which is why the top range is so tough to get to. Again, if I wanted one of my favorite plays in the slate, if I wanted to get up to someone like Kayla Harrison, well, then the rest of my plays are 7.8K. And I only mentioned one other underdog I like, Choinski. Can I even make a lineup like this? I can't. So you're going to have to get down low. You're going to have to spread your ownership to some underdogs. You have to maybe take a Hail Mary and be like, Saragih's not that good, but hopefully gets that knockout shot, and that will allow you to get to some other guys like the Kevin Holland who I mentioned. Don't play this exact lineup because, but I think that is going to allow for some things. You're going to need to punt down low, but hopefully I gave you enough information to do that. Betting-wise, nothing actually locked in yet. I'm going to get to that. I'll have a cool bet video coming out later this week, so be sure to check that out. I might get towards some Choinski, might get towards some Gustafsson, maybe even some O'Malley by KO. Be sure to check out Cool Bet using Cordo for that, and check out the video later in the week. But once again, that's going to do it for me here on the Plays and Fade YouTube channel. Be sure to like the button down below, subscribe to the channel, show some love. I appreciate you guys tuning in. Let me know what you thought of the new format. I'll be sure to answer you guys in the comment section down below. Wish you all the best of luck on all your DraftKings and betting endeavors, guys, and let's make some money.